When we're manifesting, you better make sure you're specific. I manifested this life that I'm living. And I don't mean that just in a casual way. Actually, a few years ago when I came to Colombia, I remember being outside of Santa Marta, surrounded by the forest, mountains, nature, and something in me knew I wanted this to be a part of my life. I didn't want it to just be vacations that I waited for and prayed for. I didn't want just a quick escape. And it wasn't just because I wanted a beautiful place to say that I experienced for a few days and then go back to my regular life that no longer felt like mine. I wanted it to be real. Like, hey, I think I'm gonna go up this way in a few days type of real. I wanted slow mornings. I wanted to be around the mountain air. I wanted to hear birds instead of traffic, at least more than traffic. I wanted to live in places that made me feel connected to myself again. And I wanted a life where I could wake up and decide what felt aligned, instead of constantly squeezing myself into a version of success that looked good on the outside, but didn't feel good on my body. And so now here I am, doing laundry on Sunset Beach outside of Cartagena, getting ready to leave this condo, packing up another version of my life, honey, and preparing to move into a small cabin in the forest about an hour outside of Santa Marta. Now, it's wild when you realize that you're living inside of something that you once prayed for, but nobody really talks about the part where even the life that you manifest, it still comes with goodbyes. It comes with difficult moments. And that's the part that I've been sitting with today, my last 24 hours in Cartagena. Because on paper, it's very beautiful. I'm in Colombia. I'm near the Caribbean coast. I've been waking up by the ocean. I've had sunsets that look like they were painted just for me. And I've had quiet mornings, space to think, and moments where I could genuinely say, I asked for this. But when you move around a lot, you also say goodbye a lot. You say goodbye to apartments that started to feel very familiar, beds. You say goodbye to the views that become a part of your routine. You say goodbye to the little rituals that grounded you into a place, even if you were only there for a short period of time. And today, that goodbye starts with doing my laundry. It's funny how ordinary things start to feel emotional when you know you're leaving. Washing clothes, hanging them up to dry, folding things back into your bags, looking around the apartment and realizing that tomorrow, this won't be your view anymore. When you live a more traditional life, home can feel like one fixed place. You come back to the same bedroom, the same closet, the same neighborhood, the same grocery store, the same routines. But when you're living as a digital nomad, home becomes something that you build quickly and you release it just as quickly. At least that part that's outside of you. Because you come to find that home is you, wherever you go. And so you unpack enough to feel settled, but not all the way enough to forget that you're going to be leaving once again. And that can do something to you. It teaches you not to hold on too tightly to things, but it also makes every moment feel temporary. Every sunset feels like it might be the last one. Well, you typically know, when your last day is, but it's kind of like that countdown, because every peaceful morning, it begins to feel like something that you want to bottle up and carry with you when you experience one that you haven't experienced in other spaces. It's like, wow, I kind of want this a little bit longer, because every place gives you something. And then after that, it asks you to let go of something. And this condo on Sunset Beach gave me a quiet sense of peace. It gave me a great deal of space. It gave me ocean air, slower days, and a little more room to hear myself think and to relax. and to decide my next steps of what it is that I would like to do in this season. And that might be why this last sunset is starting to feel a little bit more tender for me. As I finish hanging up my clothes to dry, knowing that I've created even this ritual before leaving, of making sure that I wash my clothes and not taking dirty clothes into my new setting. So it's like another sense of closure when you look at it. And I enjoy having that closure because it helps me have healthier relationships. Because within my past, I've had a thing of where I would get very attached. I find something that I like and I want it. I want it whenever I want it. I want it how I want it because who doesn't know when they want something specific, right? And so maybe that's why this last sunset feels so tender to me because it's not just a sunset, it's the closing of another chapter. A chapter of myself that I'm going to take into my next experience to showcase another part of myself. I think people assume that if you choose a life of movement, you shouldn't feel sad when it's time to move again. Like, yeah, I manifested this and I know this is a part of the life. And I did all this because I wanted to, I chose this life. And it's unrealistic for me to expect myself to always be excited all the time. Also, though, it's okay to grieve those endings as you step into a new beginning because it all gives you opportunity to be changed, to be developed, to be loved on in a different way, and to learn another part of you. And I'm really excited for Santa Marta because it's on my Venus line. And I've loved Santa Marta the last time I was there, so I don't feel bad about this movement that I'm making. It's just the fact of knowing that I'm going to a new environment. I'm not going to be on the ocean, I'm going to be in the woods. And so I'm going to something that I'm switching between energies, I guess you could say. But choosing something doesn't mean that it's not meant to stretch you or shift you in whichever way. Manifesting something doesn't mean that every part of the process is going to be easy. Because sometimes you can be grateful and tired at the same time. You could be excited for what's next and still feel emotional about what you're leaving behind. You can know you're on the right path and still need a moment to sit in a hammock and take it all in. And that's where I'm at right now, as you see this sunset go through a time lapse. As I'm resting in this hammock, watching the sky change colors, knowing this is my last sunset here, and realizing that this lifestyle has made me softer in many ways that I didn't expect it to. It's made me pay attention. It's made me notice the small things, the small breezes in the air, the sound of my laundry moving in the wind on the rack, the way the light hits the water before it completely disappears, the planes flying across the sky as they depart the airport nearby, the feeling of being in a place long enough for it to leave an imprint on you, but not long enough for you to fully belong to it. Because come the next day, you're headed on your next mission again. And that's the hardest part, of always arriving to a new destination just as you're leaving. And in this next morning, it was time for me to go once again. And so as I packed up my things, got myself together, and started on the journey from Sunset Beach to the bus station in Cartagena. And let me tell you, my apartment was not close whatsoever. It was about a 45-minute drive, and the bus terminal was deep into the city. It was deep into a part of Cartagena that I've actually never experienced before. So this was new for me, seeing at 7 a.m. in the morning, I never experienced this part of the city, and it made me wonder, like, wow, have I still kind of spent most of my time in touristy areas? Because how did I not see this, you know? But that's one of those things that you don't always think about when you book a peaceful place outside of everything. It's like you get the quiet, the beautiful views, and you get the beach. But when it's time to travel, you also get that long ride into the city with all of your bags, trying to make sure you didn't forget anything while calculating time, looking at traffic, as well as observing the environments around you. And as we drove further away from the beach and deeper into Cartagena, I felt a strong, familiar feeling again, the transition feeling. The transition feeling of seeing that the life that many of us live, it's different, even in the same city. And yet, even in that, I saw people focus. I saw people, carrying on with respect, even within traffic. And people were outside and busy and communicating. And as I got to the bus station, I wasn't feeling sadness. I wasn't feeling fear. Just a little bit of that strange in between feeling, where you know that one chapter is ending, but the next one is getting ready to start. And I've had that feeling so many times since becoming a digital nomad. And I'm sure a lot of you all know what that feeling is. Between airports, Ubers, bus stations, waiting on luggage, waiting for check in, watching the cities pass by as you travel from one space to the next. And I was excited about this bus ride. This was my second bus ride in Colombia. And my last bus ride was actually when I was in Brazil, when I traveled from Rio to Sao Paulo. And it was really exciting. It was very comfortable. It felt like another type of portal, And it's like being in that portal is kind of like you're in the in between. And I think that's what this lifestyle within this life really is. Like, it's a constant practice between being in the in between cities, between versions of yourself, between the life that you had and the life that you're still creating. And eventually, as I was on that bus and we took off and we started the ride to Santa Marta, it's like, wow. I've taken buses before, as I said, and in different countries before. But like every travel day still feels like its own little adventure. And I just went along with the flow. If I wasn't asleep, I was just observing the view outside of the window. As I sat there and I just surrendered to the flow of the portal and had my trust in the bus driver. I surrendered to the driver. I surrendered to timing of if we were going to make it on time for my taxi to meet me there. I surrendered to the idea of traffic and what that might look like. I just went with the flow, It's like you have to surrender to the fact that your body might be tired, but you can still find a way to romanticize everything. And as I made it to Santa Marta, baby, listen, I was able to get my bags, and then I sat down and had me some good soup. And by the time I finished my soup, my taxi was there. So I took my food to go. I was like, baby, I'm going to eat on this later. Okay. Una caja, por favor. Para llevar. Let me take this to go. Let me take all of this to go. And so as we traveled from the bus station to my next location, I was really, really excited, because the last time I was in this area, I received so many different revelations. And I really just felt like this time was like very intentional for me to have the relaxation and the messages and the downloads, and just to have that sense of regrounding and recharging in the middle of the forest. And I think, like, when I think about it, the key word for this entire experience is being intentional, because this move to the forest, it was very intentional. As I said years ago, I felt something when I was outside of Santa Marta. Like, I felt connected to the land deeply, especially spiritually, being inside of the mountains and a quiet space and time. And I was excited as we took this path. As you can see, the roads are very hollow. Okay, it's very hollow. And so I'm excited to be living in a small cabin surrounded by the forest in a small village. And so, listen, honey, I'm excited for this freedom. I'm excited for this slowdown, and whatever lessons that I've received from it. I'm excited. And it's always just a reminder, you have freedom. You're able to move around and you're able to experience new beginnings. And as our car got stuck on the road and strangers came to help us, I felt like that's very confirming to this entire process. Now, by the time that I got closer to my new place, the scenery had changed a lot. It's less city, more green, more mountains, and just strong energy to breathe in. And so I was very excited to be able to experience a new community. Look at this view. And so now that I have it, like, I'm enjoying this freedom and knowing that it doesn't remove the human parts of my life. It just gives me a different space to meet. And as you can see, my feet were very swollen for some reason. So I got on them compression socks, spent some time in the hammock, and then I finished off my food for dinner. And that was the end, baby.